Hi, my name is Mark Matthews. I'm Bernie's youngest son. The guy with that silky smooth jumper and terrible haircut right there, that's me. I not only have the honor of being his son, but I also had the great privilege to play basketball for my father at St. Vincent College from 1994 to 1998. His second oldest son, Michael Matthews, also played for him as a standout point guard from 1982 to 1986. And finally, his oldest son, Bernie Matthews Jr., played shooting guard for the NCAA Division I Sanford Bulldogs in the early 80s. One common thing that you'll hear from many of his former players is that my father believed in them enough for them to learn to believe in themselves. This could not have been truer for me. His faith in me, along with his guidance and strength, molded me into the man that I've become. My siblings and I love that man as much as anyone could possibly love a father, and miss him equally every day. But this isn't a sad story. It's not a story about loss. This is a story about a very humble, loyal, funny, devoted friend, husband, and father who just happened to be an extremely successful basketball coach. But first, let's talk a little history. Let's talk about the events that led to the incredible coach and man that impacted so many lives. Who better to tell that story than his self-admitted better half, his wife, my mother, Peggy. They both, as fate would have it, met on the basketball court. After the girls' 9th grade practice and before the boys' 10th grade practice, they would have a shooting competition that my mother claims she frequently won. They dated ever since and were eventually married in 1959. If there ever was a marriage where two became one, it was the marriage between Bernie Matthews and Peggy Coudrier. They were and still are inseparable and serve as an example of love and devotion to their 6 children and 16 grandchildren.
He was in the 5th grade. He decided he wanted to play basketball, and he put up a old peach basket. He would go out every day after he came back from school, start shooting. All the time is shoot into that peach basket. He would go out in the winter, coat, hat, and boots, and just shoot, even if it was snowing out. 9th grade, he could finally get into the high school, and he started as he should have, and he played his 4 years at St. Kenny's, and they actually won the very first championship, and it was very, very exciting for everybody, and he really enjoyed that. He received a scholarship to Duquesne. He played and started almost all the time in his years at Duquesne. He was a shooting guard. He was very good. And then he graduated. He went into the Army, played basketball almost every day. He was on the basketball team there, and he was in the Transportation Corps. And at the end of his tour, which was only 6 months, was able to find a high school teaching job and a coaching job at St. Wendland's. Brought the team to high standards, because it was very bad before that until he got there. And he had a wonderful time there. Then the Penn Hall job arose. So he did that, and that was out in Monroeville. Stayed there for several years, and then the opportunity came up for St. Vincent basketball. Went for the interview along with many others, but they liked him, and they hired him.
Coach Matthews, Bernie, was a favorite friend of mine. I was one of the first ones to meet him at St. Vincent, as I was in charge of the interviewing process for the coach's position. Bernie was not only a coach here, but he eventually worked in the admission office, which I was in charge of, as a counselor, as a recruiter. And his work ethic, we all know his work ethic was one that was organized, serious, and planned. As a teacher, a helper for anyone that needed help. What I liked about him was not only his tenaciousness, but his adventurousness. He was putting together coaching and recruiting and directing his sports camp and counseling his players, and tending his family, the father of his family, and head of the family, all of which he took very, very seriously. He would juggle all this stuff and still be as dependable as any boss could like him.
When they hired him, they told him that his coaching was his part-time job, and that his job as an admissions counselor and later as the associate athletic director were his full-time jobs. He said, okay, sure, part-time coach, whatever you say. He then built a basketball program with his bare hands with no budget. So let's review what this part-time coach did. NAI Division I nationally ranked Elite 8 in both 1998 and 2001. He led his teams to 5 NAIA national tournaments in 1991, 1998, 2000, 2002, and 2003. He was the 1981 Tri-State Coach of the Year, the 1985 NAIA District Coach of the Year, the 1991 NAIA District Coach of the Year, 1999 American Mideast Conference Coach of the Year, and 2002 American Mideast Conference Coach of the Year. Not bad for part-time work. How about induction to the Pennsylvania Basketball Hall of Fame and the Pittsburgh Basketball Club Hall of Fame? Again, not bad for part-time work. Not bad for a part-time coach. Over his career, Coach Matthews won a total of 635 games. Over 500 of those came during his career at St. Vincent College. Dad was intense and competitive and proud. He was as no-nonsense, honest, and direct as they come.
We were practicing one day in the afternoon, and he had a tendency to whistle, and when he whistled, everybody came running together. We were in the middle of the gym, and to the outskirts of the gym by the door, there were 2 people standing there. One of them was a short, dark-haired guy, and there was another gentleman with him, and you could see that it was bothering Coach a little bit that they were standing there. So eventually he did the whistle at them and asked them, what's going on? And the one guy come walking over and goes, well, there's a concert here tomorrow, and I'm the cameraman or stage manager. And that meant nothing, obviously, to Coach Matthews. And he said, what's that mean? And he goes, well, we have a concert here tomorrow, and pointed at who it was, and he said, this is Bruce Springsteen. And of course, Bernie said, I don't give a damn who it is. He's not coming in here. This is my practice. You got to leave. So with that in mind, obviously, he's the only one, and this has been told a few times, that actually the boss of the gym did kick the boss out of practice, and that was a classic.
But if you only knew him as a basketball coach, then you really didn't know him. To Dad, coaching was also the vehicle that he used mainly to teach.
Bernie Matthews was known as a successful, hard-nosed, dedicated basketball coach. However, there was another dimension that was going on in his life and work here. His underlying goal was the forming, directing, and influencing of collegians as they were transitioning from young adult life into mature and successful leaders in society. Bernie set a strong example of faithfulness to his religion, family, job, and society. When he would set his chin, you knew he was going to make a statement, which of course he expected the hearers to accept and follow. I had the privilege to be present with Bernie during one of his last days on earth. He let me know clearly that his direction and strength in his life, work, and family came from an almost inexplicable, altruistic Catholic belief system. Bernie had a bold trust in the presence and the guidance of Jesus in his life. I always believe strongly in the wonderful influence that gentlemen coaches have on their players. Bernie Matthews left an athletic, educational, and spiritual impact on many.
His former players said it best in their May 18, 2003 letter to the Tribune-Review, when they thanked him for never selling out. The letter itself is very long, but here's a powerful excerpt. They wrote,
"We all attended St. Vincent to be scholar athletes and to prepare ourselves for life after basketball. Coach Matthews was integral to our success. He was a teacher, a leader, and even a friend. He shined when he taught his players the value of respect to others, respect to authority, and respect to oneself. He taught us to be responsible and punctual, to fulfill our commitments and to be accountable for our actions. He taught us about loyalty. He taught us about dignity. He taught us to give 100% and to value the differences in all people. Coach Matthews was always fair and honest, and he never compromised his integrity or the team's integrity, and he never sold out. Up until the end, he demanded a lot from his players, and he held high expectations of all people associated with St. Vincent. We didn't always agree with his coaching style, nor could we always handle his demands, but we all agree that we are better men today because of the time we spent learning from him. For many, he was the extension of our father's hand, or the father we may not have had. We all are fortunate to have learned from him, and there is not a week that goes by that we don't benefit from his lesson."
I know he demanded, quite a bit of effort from everybody. And you think as a player that you're playing hard, and you never realize until someone pushes you like that and demands the effort what you can get out of individuals and also as a team playing like that. A commitment that he instilled in the team and a common goal. The discipline, the practices, the preparation. All these things as I was learning, and it was a learned behavior under him, and as a mentor, as a leader, teaching me how to be a leader. I was the point guard on that 4-year point guard at St. Vincent, and Coach was tough on point guards. He was a point guard. He demanded that you were perfect and expected excellence, which I appreciate. And a lot of these things have translated into my life outside of basketball, into business and in sales. It's been one of the things that I rely on, what I learned in my work ethic, and all of that has something to do with Coach Matthews. So I don't forget that. Love playing for him. Made a lot of great friends, like I said, for a lifetime, and I can't thank him enough. So it was an honor to play for you, Coach.
One thing that I always remembered about Coach was he recognized the value of hard work. He didn't give you anything. You got it because you worked hard and you earned it. Something that has always stuck in my mind was when he came to sign me and made no promises of playing time, but rather said, if you want a starting job, come take one. That was all the motivation I needed, as I was a 4-year starter and 2-year captain. Thanks, Coach, for providing me the opportunity to play college basketball, but more importantly, the opportunity to receive a college education.
When I think about Coach Matthews, I think number one, that how demanding he was, but also fair. His desire to win was contagious, and it's something that stays with me today. Also, I got a chance to know Coach Matthews on a lighter side, where I was able to work his basketball camps, work Coach Matthews' camps with Eddie McCluskey. And Coach had a sense of humor, and those are the things that I remember about Coach Matthews, that he always treated me well, and it's something I'll never forget, and I've always appreciated.
He cared for you as a player, and he coached you in the field of life at all times. He always had time for his players. His office was always open. Whether you needed help academically, or you just had a question, or he was just giving you pointers in how to become a man, how to stick to your responsibilities, how to make the best out of college, and how to make the best out of your career going forward. He always had time for his players. The wife that I have, the kids that I have, I met my wife at St. Vincent, so if he didn't take that chance on me, I would not be where I am today. And finally, he was the basketball coach, and what I do remember, freshman year coming in before the season started, I had a quirky release and shooting touch, and I remember him taking time to show me how to have the better release, how to have the elbow in, and he did it relentlessly, and I ended up developing what I believe was a decent shot going forward. So I'm blessed to have known Coach Matthews and to be a part of his playing career.
If I had to pick one word to describe my dad, it would be strength. My dad was a strong man in his faith, in his work ethic, and in his character and his principles. And he raised us to be the same way. He had a way of pushing us out of our comfort zone to grow and not be afraid if we stumbled. Because if we did stumble, we always knew it was safe to make a mistake and move on and learn from it and grow from that mistake. My dad had strong character and strong principles that were uncompromising, and that model that he showed to us was instilled in our life and the way we lived it. So because I always felt that comfort that my dad would always accept me and always wanted to push me and help me grow, that built my self-esteem up, and it gave me confidence. And because of my self-esteem being positive because of my dad and my confidence, that encouraged me to go out on a limb and not be afraid to make a mistake and not to compromise my convictions, not to be afraid to speak up when maybe everybody else around me believed a certain way and I didn't. I was very comfortable staying with my own convictions and not compromising them. And that was a lot because of the way my dad raised me and the way my dad helped me become a confident person. My dad was the real deal. He was, and what you see was what you got. He was genuine. I never had any doubt of how much he loved me and how much he loved my mom and my whole family. And I knew that he would do anything for us. And I cherished that gift of love, of unconditional love that he always had for us. Oh yeah, and I wanted to add one more thing. I loved how he always called me Barbara Ann and Baby Doll.
This is Barbie Doll's father calling. I was calling simply to say, Barbie, you don't have to email us, just call me. Call me whenever and how often you want. All right, Baby Doll? Thanks. You don't have to call me back. Just don't hesitate to pick up the phone whenever the urge is there, and just call. Love you, baby. Bye-bye.
My dad was my rock. He's the person that I think about in life when I have decisions that I have to make. I think, what would my dad tell me to do? And that's really how I make decisions in life. I remember when I was in first grade, and I used to get in the car every morning and go to St. Wendland's with my father. And he taught high school there while I was a first grader in the building across the street. Many days I would leave the children that I was supposed to eating lunch with and go and eat lunch with him in his locker room. In fact, I even remember one day throwing up all over his locker room, and he had to help clean it up and somehow get me home. But probably the biggest basketball memories I have with my dad that I still cherish till this day are when I would stay after school every day in first grade and sit in the gymnasium while he held practice with the high school team and I did my homework. That's when I felt like I was part of his basketball team. But we all know that while he was alive and even as he's now in heaven with God, that he will always be our father and our coach in life. Love you, Dad.
Most people associate my dad with basketball, but those who knew him best knew that basketball was just a very small part of who he was. He was a great player and a great coach, but an even greater family man and friend. One of the greatest gifts that my dad gave to me was his unwavering and irrefutable desire to always do the right thing and to always do right by people, even if that meant knowing that you would be standing alone sometimes. His faith in God shaped every decision he made in life. He was very disciplined, but one of the fairest people I know. He would give second and third chances sometimes to a fault. But if you trusted him and believed in him, just a fraction of the trust and belief that he gave to you, you would have the most loyal, compassionate, charitable human being you've ever met. Dad's faith, his family, his friends meant the absolute world to him. And this world is truly a better place because of all the lives he touched while here. So for all of you watching this video, I'm sure what my dad would tell you, quote, "You're all right" in his book.
I'm honored to share with you my favorite memories of Bernie Matthews. I had the pleasure of meeting Bernie when I was hired at St. Vincent College in 1993. When I first met Bernie, he was our basketball coach, not realizing that years later he would become an important part of my life as I got to know his daughter and became his daughter's best friend. I have to share with you some of my favorite memories, and the energy and passion that I witnessed with Bernie on the basketball court went far beyond the basketball court. The love and caring nature of Bernie helped me to understand how much his faith and his family meant to him. I always felt like a seventh member of the family, the seventh child, the adopted member of the family. Especially after my father passed away, I can't tell you how much Bernie reached out to me and even my mom in times when we were having a tough time after losing my dad. In fact, taking us to the lake. He put my mom in a boat and never thought that would be something my mom would go out. Here we are riding out in the boat thanks to Bernie. And another experience, another fond memory, when my brother's family was going to be out of town on Easter, and it was soon after my father passed away. Next thing you know, I didn't have a choice. My mom and I were going to the Matthews family for Easter. It wasn't a, "Nance, please come." It was, "We'll pick you up. We're going to be coming to get you." And it was just a matter of being that part of that family and faith, and so important to feeling that love that he shared for his family. I always felt so honored to be a part of his extended family of St. Vincent, but more importantly as his daughter's best friend. I admired Bernie, I admired his faith, I admired his love for his family, and there was so much more to Bernie Matthews than basketball. Many people would think that basketball was his life, but I can tell you firsthand that the man that was on the basketball court was just a fraction of the man that I admired in the years that I knew Bernie.
Well, first of all, there wasn't just Bernie Matthews. There was Mr. Matthews, Coach Matthews, Just Coach, Bernie, Captain B, and a few others that I can't mention here. Bernie was a great family man, but remember, behind any great man, there's a great woman. That was Peggy. He was also a great coach. He not only developed players on the court, but developed and prepared them for life. However, for me, he was the greatest of friends. We shared so many great times in so many different areas. We worked together at the Bernie Matthews Sports Camp at St. Vincent College. One time, Steeler coach Chuck Knoll called Bernie to see if he could get some time in the gym. Bernie told him he had to check with his program director, me, to see what we could do. Fortunately, we were able to work out some time for them in the gym, or else it might have become the Bernie Matthews Sports Camp at the Sisters of the Poor gym and cafeteria. Anytime Bernie and I were together, whether it was families together or just the captain and me, we had fun. It was just a combination that always worked. Bernie and Bob equal a good time. I'll always remember how he would laugh so hard that he cried. We did have some serious time together because when you share a friendship like ours, it includes some tough times and some serious conversations. He was always there when needed. I feel that anyone that had their life touched by Bernie in any fashion is better in some way for it. To me, he will always be remembered in my heart as a true best friend.
First, I want to thank the Matthews for asking me to make a little video about some memories I have of Coach. And two memories come in mind, one related to sports and one related directly to me. The one I remember is kind of funny when related to sports is that when JJ with Richard was in the game, Coach called a timeout, pulled him on the sideline, and gave him a big slap on his knee and told him to stop running like a broad. And I always laugh at that. I think that's one of the funniest things. Even though it's one of the games we won by like 20 points, but later on looking at the stats, we were out-rebounded by 15. And at 12:30 at night, Coach had us do a rebound drills until like almost 2:30 in the morning. Could be exaggerated, but it felt like it was after that long ride of winning, and then coming back and have to do rebound drills. But Coach never wanted us to be satisfied with our performance, and that's one of the other things that lead me into something that related directly to me that I remember that Coach provided was that coming from the inner city of DC to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, it was a hard transition for me. And I can tell you that, I was ready to leave because I just couldn't deal with the lack of diversity at the time. Being one of the only minorities on the campus, it was a struggle from an inner city to that environment. But, like always, sitting in the office with Coach and having some conversation about, life and how things operate in the world. And he gave an example of how you can take two men and drop them off in the jungle. And in the jungle, you find that you have very limited resources. And you'll note that with the two men in the jungle, that one man would complain about his environment, wouldn't try to adapt, and eventually he dies because he doesn't make an effort to survive in that environment. But you can take another man, the other guy, and he figures it out. He learns to adapt to his environment by learning what fruit to eat, what rivers to drink from, what is poisonous plants, what's not poisonous plants. And if you look at it, the man who can adapt is the man who can survive. So I applied that to my life. And sitting there with Coach, he never said, hey, make a choice or choose, or you have to be one way. He said, look in yourself and ask yourself, what guy are you? Are you the guy who's going to complain about his environment, or are you the guy who's going to adapt? And I can tell you that I have applied that in my whole life, my career, everywhere I go, even with my kids, because you don't stop and complain about what you don't have. You got to look around and see what you do have and make the best out of it. And I can tell you it has allowed me to be the successful professional that I am in my life. So with that, I thank you, Coach, for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I thank you for always making me feel like I belong, even when I didn't feel like I belong. Thank you for being my friend. I thank you for being my coach. But also more important, I thank you for being that father figure and mentor that I never had. I thank you. And I love you, big guy. Peace be with you always.